I need a spoon. Yeah. Okay, so my add rate for this is going to be 1 ounce.
You want to just change this?
Nah, just pick most of the crap off. It's fine. I don't want to waste another one. I only got 2 boards left to do. 1 ounce per 12 for what? Anybody? For my full mat. 1 ounce per 12. I have 20 ounces left, so I'm going to add a little under a ½ ounce, because I'm going to do 1 ounce per 24. So actually like an ounce. Sorry. 1 1/4. No, just as you can see, I poured AUSB back in here. I'm going to mix it again. I'm going to pour it out again. I'm going to pour it back in again. I'm going to mix it again. It's not going to set up on me like epoxy will. It's not all crazy. And so, yes, I'm doing a mat. So I'm doing 1 ounce per 24. And I've got 20 ounces left. So I'm going to add roughly 75% of that ounce, I guess. I'm going to mix this up. Greg, you want to apply some USB? You want to apply some USB?
Yeah.
Now, I have an aggregate suspended in my AUSB. So I'm mixing until I pour it. Once I pour it, he's still going to use the roller to aggravate this in the material. Okay? Because there's an aggregate in there and it will tend to fall out. Now with this, he doesn't need the same coverage rate that I had. He's going to put it down even thinner than that. So he's going to agitate it. Yeah, you got to do it like sideways. Make sure that you get all into it. Straight lines. With pressure. Straight lines. Up all the way, down all the way. Move. Up all the way, move over a whole roller. There you go. You have enough on there to do that whole roller. Okay, see why you want to do straight lines? How's he going to feather out lines that go sideways without going sideways again? We'll see. Go ahead. There you go. Cheating. You can do that, absolutely. But you need to feather a little bit lighter. A little bit more twist on your roller, I would say. Just a little bit. Okay. You can do it the other way if you want to get to. Doesn't matter. I learned in Africa that you can kind of play with this a little bit, and what we thought was over rolling it actually turns out to be okay. I swear, in Africa they played with it for about 10-15 minutes. I thought I was going to start hardening up on them, and they just kept going because everybody in the class wanted to do it. And it laid out flat, perfect, and beautiful. I was like, oh, whatever Africans. Okay. We're going to leave that alone. You'll see the difference as it dries compared to the one that I did with the aggregate in it. Yep, that's satin. And you'll see that I hardly used any material at all for that. Because we did 1.6 square meters. He probably had enough just in the roller itself to do the entire board. So, now, I am going to add another ounce. No. Can't have too much. Yeah. So we're going to mix up this with our aggregate. Anybody else want to apply a USB?
Oh, volunteer. Sir. Sir. Dito, sa kabila. Dito natin.
Hold on.
Wait. I'm excited. Excited lang.
I'll get the material for you first.
Pero yung fine lines yan, sir, hindi naman nakikita yan pag tumuyo na. Yung
Hindi,
mga...
ang kasi ginagawa niya, di ba, one stroke, di ba? Kanina pa siya. Kaya ang ginawa ko naman kasi, vertical, hindi horizontal ko pa. Kaya tingnan na natin mamaya.
Sa
Pero
pagtuyo,
sa
ba?
actual,
Sa pagtuyo niyan, hindi naman makikita yung linya, mga bag.
Hopefully sa epoxy. Pag dito kasi wala kang problema, kahit yung
Wala naman kasi reflection dito masyado.
kahit yung ninakdown natin, split trowel.
Oo.
Kasi iba kung mo yun, okay lang naman. Dito tayo diyan kami nagcha-challenge lagi sa mga
Reflection na.
yung sa protection. Pero ginagawa namin kasi protection dito niya para pero kami ganito na ito.
Lift your roller cage.
Hindi ba sa
Babapper.
Come this way.
pero huwag mong babapir na pagkatapos.
Patuyo
Now
na
your
talaga.
roller cage is in the right direction.
Susunod na araw na.
Okay? And you want your roller cage pointing the direction you're going. A little bit of pressure. And back. Move over one
Lahat
full
ng
roller.
epoxy, tatungan mo
A
ng
little bit of
protection.
pressure.
Kaya sabihin mo
Eh,
magkaroon ng brush.
USB talaga dapat ipatong sa lahat ng epoxy, no?
You have enough on there to
Kadalasan.
Oo, kasi siguro na any
Again, we're targeting
alternative
a
ka muna
coverage rate of
para at
47
least
square meters per
not
4
only
meters
this
with
one.
this.
Alam ko meron pa
So
yan.
you have enough.
Pero kadalasan ito talaga.
Probably another one on.
Ito kaya ganyang aggregate, di ba nilagay niya?
But you'll see those lines that we're
Ito,
doing?
without aggregate.
Hindi, without.
Ay, ito pala, without aggregate. With aggregate na maliit. Tapos ito maras marami.
Oh, stop. Go back where you started. Now back roll. Nope. Hold on. With no pressure now. So we're gonna start from the end of your board. All the way up. All the way back. Move over half. All the way up.
Yeah. Style na ito yung ila.
Ang ngayon siguro sa gawin ko sa mga puti mo. Kung banmaliwang ko, di ba?
Anak ka, first trip ka. Pila na kapot mo strip.
Kailan mo rin nag-map ba? Kabantay ka lang nag-map, nagpa-atras ba?
Pero kung na, pwede man na siya ilatang-latang. Pero mo tayo mong space. Mga malampod niya, aray na buka. Pero,
Abot ni mo exit pa daw ang asal ka uli. Atras lang yapon.
or lima lang. Or tulo siguro.
Kanang anak ba? U-type. U-type
All right, hey
lang.
guys, one last thing I want to tell you. If you're doing AUSV or epoxy for that matter, like a broadcast, you can't broadcast all the way up to the edge of where you stopped and then pour more epoxy because then epoxy is going to get into your broadcast and you might roll into it. So what you're going to do with epoxy, if I'm doing, say I'm doing this room and I'm starting over here because my exit's over there, I'm going to pour my epoxy for this. I'm going to broadcast to about here and I'm going to stop. So I'm going to leave epoxy here. Then I'm going to come back, I'm going to pour my epoxy where I can still reach that to broadcast. But what I'm going to do, and if I'm doing a USB and I've stopped there and now this is my next coat, is I'm going to do what's called a lift method. I'm going to go forward and I'm going to lift my roller. That way I don't do this. I don't stop and create a line. I'm lifting my roller up as I go through. Okay? That would be how you would do this. You would lift your roller up, so that way, what you're essentially doing is that if you were doing a broadcast, especially because you can't roll back into what you've already broadcast, I would have epoxy out to here. I would do my lift into that. I'd go into that, wet on wet every time, and I'd make sure that I hadn't moved back far enough to where I can't reach that spot to broadcast now. Then I'd broadcast to where I stopped again, but I'd stop about 6 inches to a foot short of my epoxy. And I'd lay my next layer of epoxy. Then I'd broadcast this, broadcast back, stop short again. That way I can keep going and I don't worry about rolling into this when I'm rolling out my epoxy. Or if I'm doing AUSV, I set it right on and I roll my next coat right up to it and I lift. Right up to it and I lift. Okay, if you want to take a look at this, those lines that you saw in there have really pretty much dissipated. I might end up with one, maybe two small roller marks. These lines have pretty much dissipated too. So, somebody just touched it and got crap in my AUSV. It was you. Sorry.
No, yeah, well.
Yeah, it's you. It fell off his pants. Look, it's white. So are your pants. So, you know, I talk a lot about roller marks in AUSV, okay?
Transitions.
Yes, they do exist. Yes, you're going to have them starting out. Yes, they're going to be permanent. Yes, they're going to be ugly. But over time, and you'll get to notice that when I stopped rolling mine, there were lines all the way up, right where I had feathered it in. But those are completely gone now. It is flat and smooth, orange peel effect. This is what you call semi-gloss satin, and that's a full matte. The way you can tell them apart, find a light. Come look at the light in this one. You can tell that light's still a circle. You can tell right where the light's coming from. You look at this one, that light could be a circle. That light also might be a square. Your phone camera does a better job of it looking at it than my eyes do. But you can't really tell. You know, you can tell there's a light source. You can make out the general shape. You come look at this one and you're like, light exists, and that's about it. The more ag you add, the harder it is to get rid of the roller marks because it doesn't have any capacity of self-leveling when it has ag in it. So satin is a great place to start with reflector because that's going to be more durable. It has ag in it. It's going to dull the sheen down a little bit, but it's not going to have the orange peel effect. So I like the satin look over reflector personally. I think it does a good job of dulling it down enough, but it's not too dull. It also adds that added layer of scratch and abrasion resistance that I would be looking for right there. Okay? Done with this.
Why is it that the PT one is more glossier than right now?
The PT one. The
Yeah,
PT one.
The first coating that we had.
Well, because this goes down as an orange peel effect, PT1 does not. PT1 goes down as what's referred to as crystal clear. Okay.
How can we still do that without
Yeah, you don't have to put a USB on it. I would recommend doing it because it's tougher. But yeah, if they don't like the satin or the gloss finish of the USB, you could absolutely just finish reflector off with another top coat like DR1, PT1. But that's what I was talking about in there. You gotta inform your customer high gloss equals high maintenance. They need to clean that floor probably every day, and they need to wax that floor probably every week to ensure that they have a coat on top of it that's going to get destroyed before your reflector done. Wax is cheap, very, very cheap. You can buy it in gallons and liters at industrial janitorial supply stores for a couple bucks. Reflector is not cheap. Reflector is a professional installed product. It's going to make a difference.
Kaya na ng maid yun.
Greg, just go.
Kaya na ng maid. Yung cleaning.
Yeah.
Hindi kasi sinasabi niya maintenance. Actually, cleaning. Waxing.
Hindi. Pero mas maganda yung PT1 na
That's roller.